G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined today by Algared. How you doing, buddy?
Believe it or not, I'm hot and uncomfortable.
Yeah, me too. I had to turn the aircon off. Really annoying, but the recording kept picking it up, so it was driving me nuts. Anyway,
It's a luxury to almost be able to run it without the air conditioner, to record with the air conditioner off. I always have to turn mine off.
yep, well, now everyone that is in the up over is annoyed at us because we're really warm and they're freezing their nuts off. We'll get on with the show.
On the east coast of the States, feet under snow and help me, I'm melting.
Yeah, pretty much. It's definitely the opposite down here at the moment. And I'll take the cold any day of the week, to be honest with you, over the heat. That's why
that's why you're in Tassie.
Yeah. So today we wanted to do talk about bigger is better, and there's a few things involved in this, so we're going to go through
a topic dear to our hearts, as many people will probably say, but there are reasons why we do take that line as well, and several things that also come into play as we're going, and as you were about to say. Stole your thunder.
No, that's fine. So for me, I think it makes it very easy to. I think the obvious one is so you can take any profession by using the earned economics of it, right? So if you have a bigger ship, yes, you may struggle to do one mission with it, but at the rate that we've seen that you earn money in bigger ships, you can very quickly afford the ships underneath it. So by buying the bigger one, you are essentially getting the smaller ones under it. And there are multiple benefits to that too. You don't have to just go, so let's take the Reclaimer here. You don't have to just go straight down to a Vulture. There's no reason you can't side skirt out into a Prospector, as an example.
It was interesting because the other day we were talking in our chat with a couple of people, and one of the guys pointed out that they'd taken out a Reclaimer, a fully crewed Reclaimer, filled it up fairly quickly. I think they said we're talking a session, and they each made 600,000K.
Yep. So and I know this is only early days, but it does at least show you the and I'm trying to phrase this in the right way, but the
profitability.
No. The thought process of their design.
Yep.
Right. So anyone that's got a brain between their ears can obviously think the bigger ship is going to mine or salvage or whatever it is more, right? But from things that you and I have looked at, right, we know, like the example that I always go back to is your Retaliator versus your Aurora thing, right? And that roughly worked out to be about 6 times as much, and we're essentially talking like a small to large ship comparison there. So what's the next step above that where it's a capital ship, right? And yes, we don't really have that information quite yet, but you have to assume it's a multiplication again. Right. And when that, now I think it's the first time we're starting to see that with the Reclaimer versus the Vulture. We're starting to get that differential. You're limited to 12 crates in a Vulture. You've got 330 in a Reclaimer. And the money that I'm seeing from people earning is literally going into the millions of Alpha UEC. And so we that scale you and I have been talking about for years is starting to be proven accurate.
Well, if you think of the 5 people on that Reclaimer making 600,000 each, that is 3 million.
Yep.
That's 3 million salvage just by scraping. And the interesting thing is, a lot of people have said, "Oh, I'd be bored," but
5 stations
we're hearing is, there's 2 people scraping, there's a pilot, and the other 2, they're stacking cargo and they're flat jack.
Yeah. And if you get bored, if you get bored,
roles.
Yeah, that's it. And that's just the initial one. We know there's 2 more tiers. I know tiers are going out the window, and they're going to more of like a proper naming convention. We've got hole munching to come, and component retrieval and siphoning of fuel and stuff like that to come down the line. So once that's all in, that's quite an advanced profession. It's not, and not to crap on mining, but it's not just cracking rocks, or drilling down. To me, salvage has multiple facets to it, the exploration part of going in. Now I'm going off into salvage, but that's not what this video is about. But got off tangent there. Right. But you get my point, right?
Yeah. And when you look at the Reclaimer, if you go through the Reclaimer and count the beds, I think it's only got the crew space for 5. Or is it 8? I can't remember. I'd have to go back and have a look.
It's 5. It's 5.
It is 5. Yeah. So when you've got a max crew of 5 in terms of beds, in terms of stations, and then you're adding those other components such as munching and component retrieval or fuel retrieval, ammunition retrieval, and things like that, you're actually going to be doing more than just the one role. You're not just going to be a specialist cargo haul, cargo stacker.
I think
you're going to be.
I was going to say
doing the other things as well.
Real quick, a way to kind of bring this back to the bigger is better stuff. We don't have the RSI landminer, or what you and I call the landminer, but the RSI miner, and we don't have the Orion, right? And if you start to look at what a prospect or a mole is like, you start to go, well, what's that going to ascertain for an Orion? Like, can I just sit on a tractor beam and pull rocks in front to be munched? Can I do a bit of refining processing, like getting rid of the volatility of quantanium? So you start to go, well, oh, there's actually multiple things. Can I just fly the ship?
There's also with the Orion, there's also that classic image that we didn't make. Someone else in the community did it. It's the old Orion model set up against the Prospector model, and the Prospector is smaller than one of the components used for storing ore on the Orion, and we know the Orion has doubled in size since, and that's like it's just one of those things where you go, how's it not going to make more? So that's the old Orion model, isn't it?
Hang on, I'm trying to open it. I'm trying to open it in the background. There we go.
So there's the old Orion model, and that little dot down the bottom.
That look like near my. I don't know if you can't see. People can't see my cursor, but wait, maybe if I go back over here, they can. But
that little dot there
is the Prospector.
That's the Prospector.
Yeah. And as Algared said, that's the old one, and anyone that's seen, they basically doubled it in size. So you can see very quickly the scale of economics thing we've been talking about. It speaks for itself. There is no way you could take so say there's 5 people in that Orion, 5 people versus 5 prospectors. Even if you dial that up to 10 people in the Orion, I believe it's 5 to 8 in the Orion, right? But the point I'm trying to get at is there's no way the same number of people in prospectors can remotely come close to this thing. It just
not when you even consider the munching jaws, the grinding jaws on the Orion are the size of the prospector itself.
Well, that's not to say prospectors won't have their place. There'll be small little places they've got to get into and stuff like that. But again, when we take into what we're saying earlier about that whole earn down thing, buying an Orion, essentially you have brought the ones underneath them. You can get to the mole, you can get to the prospector fairly easily by using this, right? And this is a bang for buck mentality. If you want to go out and buy all of them, by all means do that, right? But if you are trying to be savvy with your money, right, and you are trying to get as many ships as possible, right, which is, let's be honest, I think that's what a lot of people are trying to do. They're trying to get as much gameplay as possible for the littlest amount of money, right? And that's kind of where we're coming at this from, is if you get it, like mining might just be your thing and all you want to do is mining, then do you, right? But if you are like me, I know Algared's a bit like that as well. We're a bit of jack of all trades. We want to try out a bit of everything. Your best way to do this on $1 is to get the big ones, or get at least one big one that you can use to earn.
And yet you'll hear a lot of people who want to do everything. They'll say, well, I'll just get the starter ships for that profession. I'll get the I'll get the Prospector, I'll get the Mole, I'll get the Prospector, I'll get the Vulcan, I'll get the Vulture, I'll get the small cargo ships, and that way I can do everything. There is that element where that economy of scale comes in as well, where the bigger ship earns more than the smaller ship. Yes, we acknowledge that having a crew will actually make it, needing a crew will make it difficult. But the other factor that comes in is the cost factor.
It does technically cost more to get more big ships, but as I said, if you are really tight with it, you can just get one and go sideways or down, right? And as soon as you go, say, like, get the Vulcan, the Vulture, the Prospector, a Cutlass Red, whatever those core ships are that you get, you can see very quickly, like, take the Reclaimer here, $400, you've already gone past that very quickly.
But then we've got that whole question of, well, I'll just buy it in game. And that's where that cost factor comes in as well, because we know from 10 for chairman questions that Chris has answered in the past and the interview you had with Chris years ago, that your Aurora is going to be kind of like your single fighters. That's going to be kind of like your Datsun, your family sedan. Your Javelin is going to be like your super carrier. And the cost to buy them in game is going to be exponential.
Yep.
And so it might take you a month of regular gameplay, or if you're an addict, a week to earn an Andromeda in game, which is I think what Chris was kind of aiming for.
You can
it's
see
going to take you significantly longer to earn those larger ships, and yet at the moment we can get some of those larger ships really cheaply compared to those smaller ships, and that's often why we take that line, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you can see what they were. If you were having to sell people ships that were attended for an org, you've obviously got to sell them at a cheaper rate because one person can't afford to buy for 10 type of thing. So you can see that they've compressed it down, and at a later date, they'll never ever, like, for example, like the example I was given is the Javelin would essentially be worth $30,000, but they'll never sell it for $30,000. But in game, so say it's worth, I don't know, 30 million.
I think at the moment it's worth 3,000 cash, but it's probably going to be worth.
Yeah. Well, just let me give an example, and I know this example isn't to put it in Alpha UEC terms. Say it costs 30 million to buy. Now it would actually be 300 million to buy on release, right? Because it's got to scale out for multiple people to have to earn it. And I know that's not accurate. It's probably a lot more than that. Even it's probably more like 100 million versus 300 million. But the point I'm trying to get at is these ships are going to be a lot more expensive to buy, especially the real top end ones like Krakens and Idrises and Javelins and whatever else comes down the line. And a lot of people, the biggest, I think, blowback, I don't know what to call this, Algared, but the biggest critique we hear is, but I want to play on my own, right? We hear that a lot. But at the end of the day, even if you just get one bigger ship, that one bigger ship, you will be able to earn those singular ships much faster. And as I said, if you've only got to go out into safe space and do one mission to buy a prospector, it's much better to go out and earn that very quickly, as opposed to go out and take a prospector and grind multiple missions to then be able to buy a vulture that's just to the side of it, right? And I think the last thing I'll probably say here on this particular part is that obviously if you want that gameplay, like you want that grind, that's probably the biggest negative I can see to what we're saying, right? If you literally want that Aurora 0 to hero, that's not this.
And I know that's a legitimate claim that people make, because that's one of the things I get told all the time. You've got nothing to aim for. You've got no gameplay because you've got everything. And my response is, yeah, but I don't want to do the grind for ships. I want to do different areas of grind. I want to grind to try and build up a population or make a settlement for us rather than struggling. Totally different gameplay loop. But
you've also got rep grind. That's the other thing. That'll probably still be a factor in a lot of these ships. You're just lessening the grind by a significant margin. Well, you're removing the economical grind, I think, is the easiest way to put it. You can put your money into other things, but you're still going to have to get rep, as I said, and other things.
One aspect that earlier you said when we were getting ready, you said, oh, what else do we want? And a classic one would have been that alpha to dollar value chart, the alpha UEC value of ships versus the dollar value of ships.
I've got that. I can open that if you want. But
because that also comes into play often in terms of the bigger ships. So even though I'd never recommend anyone buy an 890 jump, it's actually one of the better ships in terms of alpha UEC to dollar value.
So that only works with the ships that are purchasable in game for one, and two ships that are in game, right? So basically, as Algared states, the image that he's talking about is a little bit out of date now. It's been out for a few years, but the top three ships are like the Reclaimer, the Carrack, and the 890 jump. But again, they are the only kind of big ships in game, so of course they're way up there. But his point is sound. The bigger a ship is, the more alpha C to dollar ratio, because again, like we said, you get, Prospector versus an Orion, you multiply them out, you'll get better dollar value for the Orion over a Prospector or a Mole, because they cost more per individual ship.
It also comes into the argument we always had: don't get vehicles.
Yes.
Now, you and I both like the Mule. We both like the I don't know about you, but I know that I really like the old little golf buggy. I do like the Ursa. I'm not a Dragonfly fan, but I see the value on it.
Yep.
But we'd never recommend anyone go out and buy them unless they're using it as an LTI token or something like that.
That's true.
And part of the reason for that is you look at the dollar to value, and it's like $1 is worth, when you're looking at the buying one of those in game, the dollar value is something like $1 equals 400 or 500 Alpha UEC, and that's like,
they are the direct opposite to the big ships, aren't they? They are that and if you look at the, I'll bring it up, right? It's a much older image, but it is let's see where you're going. So just give me a second. I do have to find it though. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah, it's one of those things that wasn't originally planned to be pulled up, but as we were talking, it just made sense to reference that and bring it up.
Yeah, I can't find it, Algared. Sorry. It's been a very long time since I brought that one up. Anyway, too much dead air, so we'll move on. Yeah, so the other part of this, obviously, I think that is a big positive that a lot of people miss, but it's something that you bring up a lot, and that's the loaner ships. And there are, besides the kind of obvious of like, oh, you get something in place of what you're doing, for me, I've also found that having the bigger ship has some really big perks when it comes to profession stuff. So, for example, if you take the fact that I and you own an Orion, they've given us the Prospector, the Mole, and they're more than likely going to give us that RSI minor if that comes first to try out while we're waiting for such, the Reclaimer's probably a bad example because they kind of came out at the same time.
And it's also in game, so it's kind of
so that's an exception, not the rule. But say I'm trying to think of other professions like an Endeavor. There you go. More than likely, when the Apollo comes online, the Endeavor will be a loaner for that because of the medical stuff,
Yeah, and at the moment it has I think it's a C2.
It's a
it's a Cutlass Red and stuff. When we pull up the chart, we'll be able to have a look and confirm it.
I'll flick over
my memory is shocking, even if I looked at it half an hour ago.
So this is the ship loaner matrix. It does not roll off the tongue at all. But as you can see right there, Algared, the Endeavor gets us,
and Cutlass Red.
Yep. So yeah, long story short, there are some very good recommendations from a loaner perspective. Some of them absolutely suck, right? So there are pros and cons to this as well, like anything else. Now,
one interesting thing that's on this loaner matrix, which I noticed when I was going through, is you notice the Carrack there on in the fourth or fifth line.
Yep.
And the Carrack has listed as a loaner the C8 Pisces or the C8X if you've got the upgrade, and the Ursa Rover. And that is not because it's a loaner ship for the Carrack, because there's something wrong with the Carrack. That is because those two ships are actually part of the intrinsic equipment that comes with the Carrack, which is one of the things that makes the Carrack a good ship to have.
I think that's how they've just coded it. They've just coded it to automatically give you those two as loaners, but eventually they'll probably become separate items that they pull out of the pack and down the line. So yeah. But I'm just going to have a quick look and see if there's any other really good highlights here. Because there's some really bad ones. Like, look at the Caterpillar. These are combat loaners and stuff like that. So, you kind of look through it and you there's good and there's bad. A Cartwile for a Santoki, where I would have given a Banu Defender personally, but each to their own. But yeah. Some are bad. Is there any bad ones you can think of right off the top of your head? This is probably not the best. A Perseus, you get a Hammerhead and a Vanguard Harbinger, but that's not too bad because you get two ships for one.
But The Polaris, because you get exactly the same, a hammerhead and a harbinger. So they're bad, you know. But if you've bought the ship, then having those available to you is great as well. And the beautiful thing about those loaners is often they are daily driver ships.
Yeah, I'd have to say, like I said back at the beginning of this part, is that the best ones are the profession ones. So you know, you get to try out other professions as they come along. So yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
And this, I think, brings us to the third part.
Yep.
Which is when to apply for CCUs.
Yeah, and
those big ships you bought.
And that's the tough part. It's really going to come down to a personal basis, isn't it? You know, at the end of the day. For me, if I really want that profession and I know I'm kind of locked into that bigger ship, I've got no problem applying it, right? But I know I'm also locking myself off to further future savings. So it's partly financial position, it's partly confidence in what the ship is and the gameplay. And again, there are certain advantages like to having those loaners. Like if I've got the Orion, I don't have a Prospector or Mole, but I know what mining is like because I got to go out in the Prospector and the Mole, you know, things like that. And that'll bear more fruit down the line. Same thing with munching in the Reclaimer or underground mining as that comes online and stuff like that. So yeah.
But one of the things I often look at is, apart from that, there's two things you have to consider when you're looking at whether to apply a CCU. One is, can I get more savings down the track? What's the likelihood of getting more CCUs, more war bonds CCU at a saving? The other factor is the value of the loaner ships themselves. So if you look at the Endeavour gets a Starfarer and a Cutlass Red. You take the price of a Starfarer and a Cutlass Red, and it's almost very close to the current $350 price for a base Endeavour. That, to me, is a good value application, because you get to play around with the Starfarer and you get to play around with the medical gameplay. I wouldn't suggest, even though I am a big advocate of the Crucible, I would never encourage anyone to necessarily apply a CCU to the Crucible, because the loaner for the Crucible is just a Constellation Andromeda.
So I did manage to find this image finally of the one you were talking about. It is very pixelated because it is very low resolution, but you can see up here all the vehicles at the top, right? So they don't scale very well, obviously. So the bigger the blue bar, the better the savings, essentially. So if you go right down to the bottom here, you can see 890 Jump, Reclaimer, and Carrack, and even things like the 600i and that. But you can see every single one of these ships is a big ship, and you can see very quickly as you go down, the bell curves are big ships and vehicles. It's really, really obvious. So it's just simple math. There's no like we're wacky and we pulled this out of our butt crack. It is literal math is all it is. And I think that kind of, I don't know, anything you want to add to that, Algared?
No, I think that it's kind of a, why do we always suggest the big ships? And generally this is the three reasons why. A, they'll scale in terms of earning. Yes, you might need to use a multi-crew, but even with a multi-crew, as we're seeing with the Reclaimer at the moment, 2 sessions on a Reclaimer with 5 people and you've made 1.2 million.
I did see a certain content creator go, it's the first time we've ever had multi-crew gameplay for a profession, which is bullshit because we've also got the Mole. But I do get his point. It's the first time it's been in a capital ship. I'll give him that, right? So,
I think it also applies in terms of just everyone is, when you're out salvaging and you're doing the scraping, everyone has to be busy. If you're not unloading for cargo, it blocks up, so you've got to stop. So you need people moving the crates away from the out point. If you want to maximize it, you need both your things going. You need your pilot constantly moving the ship, so it becomes a bit more engaging, I suppose. And
It's definitely a slower rate too in the Vulture, because you've got to do a lot of everything yourself. Like you got to get up and move around and stuff like that. And we don't have the blast charges on that thing yet, where you've got to get out and EVA out as well. So and again, like, just many hands make light work, and it's really obvious. That's why it's able to. I'd love to figure out the actual amount difference. Like, you know how I was saying, like, when we did the math between the Retaliator and the Aurora, it was about 6 times the difference. I wonder if that tracks. I wonder if it's more of a flat multiplier, or is it completely different per profession. So that's something else we'll have to look into down the track.
And is it the time factor? Like, you look at how much time, if you're a single person in the Vulture, you've got to get out of your seat, move to the back, go back.
Yep.
And that process of going backwards and forward, that's going to add time to your to the work. And yeah, you can do it by yourself, but
I've heard a lot of people having a weird issue with the Vulture too, because it keeps spitting you out the side door rather than turning around backwards and just allowing you to walk through. So there's obviously little teething issues that will get fixed, and that's probably more a PTU problem. That's the other thing I think we do have to point out as well. This is only on the PTU at the moment. So, but it's a food for thought thing. A lot of what me and Algared have talked about over the years started out as speculation, and the more and more as time has gone by, it is proven to be accurate. There are things that have also proven to be wrong, but in the case of, I would say, most of what we talk about, it has been, considered correct. And as more time goes by, I think other people will start to see. Well, people don't want that speculation; they want the firm. They want the facts, essentially. So yeah, I think as other people start to see it like we do, hopefully there'll be a little bit of a shift.
I know when we're doing Fix My Fleets, I'm often almost taking a view of learn from what I've done. Don't.
Yeah.
And I'm not upset about the ships I've got, and in fact that I've got pretty much everything, and goes against our basic advice of earn big, earn down, don't get the little ships or the vehicles, because it's a waste of money. And unless it is a waste of money.
It's like you said, though. Fix My Fleet is not. How do I put this? I said it to you the other day. It's a cautionary tale. It's not. It's not a how you should be doing things. Like we still, at the end of the day, will say, get a starter pack, get an Avenger, or get one really good ship that you like. Like a new player coming in, you don't need to do what we've done and go down the whole Fleet Series thing anymore. Like, it's just not a good idea. And there are so many orgs out there now. You could literally have an Aurora and be very content playing with other people, right? That's all you need to do. But if you have gone too far, that's what Fix My Fleet. That's why it's called Fix My Fleet. It is to fix the problem that you have created.
And it's not really. It's not really. I want to. This is where I want to buy. Where do I need to go? That's almost to build my fleet episode. We'd be using CCUs and the rest.
Yeah.
Fix My Fleet, and Fix My Fleet also isn't really for those people who are like me, who just say, I'll get it. Yeah, I want that. I'll have it. It is for people who go, I've really hit the end of my what I can afford to put in.
Yep.
But there are ships that I do want. And I want all these ships, but there's things I want to do and things I want. How can I get there and get the best? I suppose get the most for what I've spent.
That's a good way to put it. So maybe make your dollar go further is another way. What it can be useful for. It's also good for if you have just made bad purchases. That's why we
undo those bad purchases I've made.
That's why we called it Fix My Fleet. There is multiple things to it, but at the end of the day, if you can't afford to buy said big ships like this, you should not be buying multiple small ships, though. Because as soon as you buy multiple small ships, get one big one, right? Because that one big one will set you up so much better in the game. Now, from a playing the game now perspective, not so much fun. That's why we talked about loaners today. But the other part of it is, you can also have that smaller ship and have an exit CCU to the bigger one when it comes out, when it's got more gameplay features online. So right now, let's give the example of the Vulture versus the Reclaimer. The Reclaimer is a little bit lumbering and slow compared to said vulture, especially if you want to do it on your own, right? If you want to do it on your own, the vulture is the much better prospect. But if you do have friends, obviously go to the reclaimer. But down the line, even without friends, the reclaimer is the better option because you can struggle through, get one mission done on the day of release, so to speak, and then go buy the said vulture, making better use of your money, right? So that's what an exit strategy is, just the ability to use it now and turn it into something later that is much better financial incentive or better for you.
Yeah, so the less people you have working on your reclaimer, the more your profits are going to be. So if you can, but then it'll also take you that time factor.
Yeah, if you're so essentially, Algared, because like with the 5P we said, if you're struggling through to do the whole thing on your own, but you're going to get paid 5 times as much, and the economics of scale, so it's heaps more money than most people realize.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might take you. So let's say, for example, they made 3 million or whatever you were saying in an hour. It might take you 5 hours to get to 3 million, but 3 million in a reclaimer is going to be a lot quicker than 3 million on your own in a vulture. You know, so
I think the bigger thing is just that cost factor. Like even if I join you on your reclaimer and we split the profits that we make and we go out and do 5 sessions in a reclaimer, I got 3 million.
Yeah,
that's getting, we'll do 10 sessions in the reclaimer and I got 6 million. That means I can now almost buy a Phoenix.
Time is a factor in money too. Time is money. So you do have to bring time into the equation. You can't just go, it's a session. It's more likely to be how many hours or minutes or whatever. You've got to look at it that way as well. And when you do that again, reclaimer can just do so much more. If you've actually, like I tried to do an 890 jump in a vulture and then I tried to do an 890 jump in a reclaimer, like night and day. Like the laser,
and that was by yourself, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just so much bigger in the reclaimer. You can just suck up so much more material. It's just like a no contest. Yeah,
and even the cargo hold is so much bigger as well. But yeah, we're now starting to
repeat ourselves.
That's right.
But I think we'll kind of wrap it up here then. But I hope we kind of wanted to do this video because there's been a few people, like it's something that comes up all the time. Why do you guys recommend big ships all the time? And it's just a thing. Now the reclaimer's coming around. I think it was a good time to talk about it because it's more obvious now. We've now got examples we can point to you that prove our point. So that's kind of why we did this episode.
And as we were saying, there are some ships where applying the CCU can actually be a real benefit to you just because of the loaner ships you get.
Yeah.
So Endeavour it's a classic example. Crucifle's not a very good example.
Always going to save money though if you're more patient. You just have to be patient, and if you're playing the game every day, then applying a CCU, I can see the advantage in that, but also waiting. So it's a personal case by case basis there. All right, then, if you like this type of video, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Make sure it's set to all notifications. We've been hearing a lot of reports of people not being able to see our videos. So if you want to get every video, make sure you turn it on to do so. Algared, what would you like to hear from people in the comments below, specifically about what we've talked about today?
Yep. So in terms of loaner ships, which ships do you think give the best loaners for the ships you're looking at, and when do you think is the best time to apply those CCUs?
Yeah, I think for me, I would like to, now that we've got the reclaimer in game and we've got kind of evidence that we can point to easier, does that make anyone feel more rest assured that it's going to be the same for other ships going, like the bigger ships going forward? Does it, were you doubtful and now this kind of proves it a little bit, or do you still think we're crazy? Look, I know I'm crazy, but that's fine. You can just confirm it in the comments. That's fine.
Well, and they all know I'm crazy because you made that little Discord emoji.
I did.
It says crazy out. So yeah.
If you want to go the extra mile on Patreon too, we're very appreciative to our supporters. You'll see them at the end screen in a minute. We do appreciate that, and if you want to go extra mile, we have got things going on in the background. I'm not quite ready to talk about them yet, but we are looking into merch and stuff, guys. So this has been a very long time coming. We've been working on this for 12 months probably.
Probably
So
longer.
or longer, but it's been very difficult for us. So we're not business people, so just put it that way. But yeah, we're looking into that, and we'll be ready to share that with you guys shortly. All right. Well, with that then, he's been Algared,
Execute.
and we'll catch you
And we're
next
outta
one.
here.